Brother Tyler, invite the guests into the lodge and leave the door open so others may join us and see how things take off.
Because we're definitely
Wingin'
winging it.
Welcome to another episode of Follow Me. We are your hosts, Worship Brother Wiley Forrester, and I'm Worship Brother Will Moore. Tonight's episode is brought to you by
Gladys Knight's Chicken and Waffles. No longer in business, but still some of the best chicken and waffles in town.
And since we're winging it,
We could have went with Bohongalese, but we did not.
or Popeyes,
Yes.
or churches,
But we didn't.
that's okay.
So, big shout out to everybody who's joined us tonight. We appreciate you tuning in with us every other night, basically. And, we're definitely having a good time with this, if you can't tell. Some of our shows we do scripted or at least build a lot of note base and a lot of research base off of what we want to do. But today's show is going to be somewhat a little different from our normal strategy or our normal approach. It's where we're going to basically talk about topics that are on our mind today. There are things that happen in your life every day that resonate with something you could have already been thinking about, you really didn't know. And something caught my eye today and something I read. I'm like most of you on here. I go on Facebook, I follow Twitter. I follow probably 40, 50 other grand jurisdictions from around the world, and I'm always watching something, in relation to masonry and seeing how brethren are acting. Well, today something caught my eye, and it really pulling at my heartstrings tonight. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and I know, Will, you're very passionate about it as well. And it's about using your fundraisers to pay bills. And I don't say that lightly, and I'm not trying to upset someone. But the facts are, after what I saw today, I just need to explain some things to brethren and hope that they understand a little better.
Yeah, and we've always said that some of our topics are going to be harder than others. Some of our topics might hit you at home in your heart or in your mind harder than others do. We're not singling anyone out.
No,
by no means.
By no means.
This is something that my lodge has kind of had to go through in the past, and I know other lodges have had to. But in this day and age, what we're going through right now, I know a lot of families are hard hit, and that in turn hits a lot of lodges hard.
Oh, absolutely.
So, just something that pressed on our hearts today that we wanted to discuss, and we wanted to definitely want to get some input on, but we wanted to share because this is definitely something that's probably across masonry as the world, not just here in our jurisdiction.
Yeah, and to start this off, I want people to understand or have a better understanding of dues structure and what they're designed to do. We pay dues, or basically membership fees, that are for operations of our buildings. That's what our dues cover. All lodges are set up differently with how their due structures are set. But in the state of Georgia, we get a per capita tax that we're assessed every June 30th, which is coming up. And now, we haven't met in 8-9 weeks. And, by the time we go back to lodge, it'll be 10, 12, 14 weeks. We don't know. But now it'll be time for the taxes to be done. Mm-hmm. So the due structure should be set up in your lodges to be able to cover your monthly utilities, your any other outstanding bills, your insurance, things like that. That comes from the lodge. Mm-hmm. Unless you're in a temple company or some other situation, but most lodges own their own buildings. A lot do not have temple companies and things like that. But we pay the Grand Lodge $26 per member, maybe $26.50. I'm not totally sure. It's one or the other. I'm sure that one of these fine gentlemen who are watching us tonight will tell me the due structure. All I know is if you got 100 members in your lodge at $26 a person who are dues paying members and non-emeritus, non-50 year, that would be $26.50. And so even at $26, that's $2,600 a year that you're going to know every year that you're going to have to pay before your bills ever start. okay? And then we're basing this on a 100-member lodge, okay?
Nice round number.
So you know the up front that you want to get $26, so your dues have to be more than $25, okay? And on top of that is, say your insurance is another $1,800, $2,000 a year, so you divide that by the 100 members.
Right.
Then your power bill, you take 12 months of power bills, divide those things out.
Gas, trash,
Yeah,
water.
whatever, all your utilities.
Right.
You know, take that in a pool over 12-month time and divide that by 100. And this is what your dues should be just to break even to operate your building.
Right. And this is something Wiley and I have had a ton of discussions on. And one of the reasons we're talking about this is because we know there's a lot of families out there that live paycheck to paycheck. Well, some lodges that I've known, and not just here in Georgia, but others I've visited, they live passing the hat to passing the hat, and there's just no other way to say it. You know, so I know that during this downtime, there's going to be lodges in the world that are going to be hurting because they can't make their ends meet because they didn't prepare themselves accordingly when they set up their dues. Well, we don't want to go up too much because we got some older members that are going to get upset about it. Well, would you rather have a brother upset that you can work with or close your lodge? And I hate to be blunt about it, but if you can't run it, what's going to happen to it?
Exactly. And that's the whole basis of the conversation in the beginning of our talk tonight, was the sheer fact that I know that there are many lodges that are using fundraisers to pay bills. And that is not good. And I'm not chastising you, and I'm not saying that. I just think that, brethren, we need to be more prepared to take on these situations. And I understand, well, we got people that won't, if they don't love their lodge enough to make the difference, then maybe they're not who you thought they were.
Well, it's not only that. I'm not a tax attorney. You're not a tax attorney. But do we run into any kind of tax issues by using those fundraisers to pay our bills?
It's possible, and but especially now with the way that some of these municipalities are going to be burdened for taxes and everything else, they're going to be coming after nonprofit organizations like ours, churches, any other meeting place for that, and it's just a matter of time now. But the overall is lodges not preparing themselves or being afraid to introduce a dues increase. I will use Buford as an example because that's where I go and that's where I'm a member. Our initiation fees are $250 just to put in a petition. Okay, we want to make sure up front that if we're charging or that's the cost of the petition fee, that someone puts out $250, they're going to want to get their $250 worth. Whereas just give me $100 and we'll work through it, or $20 a degree or whatever. I just think that we've always been charging masonry too cheap. It's always been too cheap. If I had to pay $500 a year to be a member in a Blue Lodge, I would pay $500 a member to be in a Blue Lodge. Fact.
Well, and to play devil's advocate a little bit on that, I know there are some older folks in society who they're living on a very tight budget. But just like anything else, if you talk to the brethren in your lodge, brethren help brethren.
There's that pride thing. We talked about pride several episodes ago, where pride, how it plays a demon in the things we do, because we as men are kind of hard-headed and we just don't want to listen.
Huh?
And yeah, exactly. So, our pride gets in our way with asking for assistance or help if you can't. It's not like something needs to be made public, because if you're talking to people in confidence, they should be able to not spread your business. We're Masons. We're not supposed to do that crap.
Right.
So, but what I'm just saying, brethren, about the dues is we got to stop using dues or fundraisers to pay the bills.
Yeah, because now's a perfect example. We have a lot of lodges haven't been able to have some of their fundraisers, and some of these are their big fundraisers for the year that we've already passed the time for. Now what does that lodge do? Because they may have relied on that money. Where do they turn as a lodge? they turn to their members.
And I'm going to say this too, brother, and I say this playing devil's advocate. We buy food from each other. Mm-hmm. We buy any lottery ticket or raffle ticket, whatever we're doing, we buy from each other 90% of our fundraising.
Right.
Okay? 10% actually comes from the profane world. Okay? In my opinion. Now, remember, this show is all about my opinion and Will's opinion. But if we're buying it from each other, why can't you go to the brethren who's member of your lodges and ask them to dig in their pocket and help save the lodge? Does that lodge or the survival of that lodge not mean enough to you to reach in there? You know what I'm saying? It's the same way with when we ask for a per capita increase at the Grand Lodge during our grand session. Does the body of masonry as a whole not mean enough to you when our leaders of our Grand Lodge lay out where our funding goes and the shortfall we're going to have and the reasons why, that we finally gotten better at doing those things from that level? So we're communicating the information down to the brethren, the why. If you walked into your lodge in Decula and said, brethren, we need to do this, here's the why, the brethren are going to come through, because more often than not, they love their lodge and this fraternity enough to work at it.
I mean, case in point, my lodge in Decula. 9 years ago now, we were at a point where we had almost nothing and when I say almost nothing, I mean almost nothing in the bank.
Mm-hmm. Brethren
had to come forward with some money to keep the lights on. We only had 3 or 4 people coming to a meeting, so we know from my lodge, and I know your lodge has had some financial issues in the past, so we know what it's like to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and turn it around. You know, and I'm thinking back that if we'd not turned that around years ago, we would, under this circumstance right here, our lodge probably would have, our brethren would have probably come through for us in a pinch. I guarantee that, because they love the lodge. But there's a chance we might have had to close our lodge because we couldn't meet our bills.
You know, and we've got some wonderful comments right here. Brother Cole, who's a member of my lodge, said, when we go back to lodge, how about let's having a community free fundraiser? It wouldn't be a fundraiser, but an outreach program to say, here's who we are. Come on in and we can balance things out. Brother Henry talking about, if anybody attend the leadership conference, they'd understand that, because that's a hot topic at our conference.
Yeah, finances are a hot topic. Finances are one of the hard things to touch on in masonry, because the brethren love to give money to a cause.
Yes.
We love to do that. We always have. Our Grand Lodge does that. But when it turns around and you say, hey, I need a little bit of an increase on this or that because we need to make sure our lodges stay stable financially. Ooh, whoa, what do you,
Well, it's just like you pulled their mortgage out from under them. I mean, I get those things. But the facts are, if you have an accurate financial report in your lodge, and we continue to get accurate financial reports at our Grand Lodge level, if there is a need for increase, some lodges I know haven't had a dues increase ever. They may be $25 a year. Now, some of these lodges can subsidize things by rental property they Right.
have
and work through with these other things. But a lot of lodges like mine, we take care of ourselves. It's up to us. It's our building. We don't have a temple company. And when we walk in there with a possibility of a dues increase, we know that something in our monthly bills have went up to justify what we've got going on. The cost of living happens in our lodges too. And that's the one thing I think we as Masons forget sometimes, is that the cost of doing business tends to go up. And those folks that said at 811 Mulberry Street ain't just sitting down there trying to figure out how to get in your pocket. I promise you.
No,
we're trying to figure out how to survive.
Well, and if you want to go down that rabbit hole, which it could be, we're talking about the Grand Lodge. When you think about the money that we're given in per capita, I know in our jurisdiction, only a small portion of that, less than
$9.50.
a about a third of it actually goes towards operations.
$9.50 per member.
So that lodge has to operate on that money only. We're talking about Grand Lodge session. We're talking about all kinds of stuff under that. That has nothing to do with the Masonic home or anything like that.
Correct.
That's just operations. Is that little 1/3 chunk of that?
And right now, it's not even a third of it.
And you got to remember, in the state of Georgia, we've gone from 40 years ago, 60,000 Masons or whatever. I'm sure those numbers aren't exactly accurate. Down to 30,000, just over 30,000 now. That cuts your revenue in half.
Well, here's the thing: is in 15 years ago, we had 50,000 Masons probably still here. 15, 20 years ago.
Okay.
Since our last Grand Lodge per capita increase.
Right.
And now, we even got a reduction last year because of something that we had to pay for, came off of our per capita. So we went from $30.50 down to $26.50.
Right.
So there was that money was already allocated, just like all the money that your $26.50, except for $9.50, is already allocated.
Right.
Okay. So what we don't understand is, they get $26.50. No. $9.50 is your operating money for the Grand Lodge. That covers your money has to be paid for your messenger out at $26, $10 for children's home, board of relief. If you look in the code, it tells you exactly what your $26.50 goes to. But to get back to your own lodge, your bylaws, like some lodges still charge per degree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, at my lodge, it's this flat fee. This covers all your degrees, your first year of membership, and we always give you a nice token if you stand your proficiency on your master's catechism. But we do that so that we ensure ourselves in our own lodge that if that member decides not to come back and we have to suspend him after 1 year, we've covered him because we're gonna have to pay tax on him.
Right. Because
the way our code is written. They're a Mason not in good standing on January 1 of each year, but you don't suspend until June. So you carry them through your stuff.
Well, Brother Henry here makes a good point. We're making emeritus members every year, and they're exempt from dues, but they're not exempt from per capita, are they? They're not exempt from all of it.
Not all of it. It's a partial, and it tells you in the code exactly how much that is. That's a topic for another day in itself.
This is that rabbit hole.
Unfortunately, a personal opinion of mine is, unfortunately, and I hope that it probably upset a lot of brethren, but I can't help it. But we need to do away with the emeritus membership status. That's just a personal opinion of mine. It's been that way for 10, 12 years because I've been in a position to study trends and tendencies and how we're aging and how we're growing older and older and older, and eventually we'll have more emeritus members than anything. And with emeritus members only paying just to keep their messenger and something else that goes in there, I'm not 100% on it, but what I'm saying is if we continue to do that and trend that way, we're going to break ourselves.
Well, and it breaks the lodges too, because now they don't get that dues. I mean, that's the big thing that we're really keen on here tonight is the more emeritus you have, the less dues paying members you have.
Correct.
Regardless of what
then your pie gets smaller.
Right.
So that's where we're going at, and most parts for Brother Walford is a lot of lodges love to be able to pay for individual degrees, and I think that's still it's an admirable thing. Mm-hmm. But my point in this conversation is, we got to stop using fundraisers to pay the bills, period.
Yeah, because
set your dues to do that. Mm-hmm. That's why we have dues.
Well, and it's a perfect example right now in this day and age. A lodge comes out, and we've said this, and I'm going to just reiterate it one more time. All right, our dues are X, our payments for a year are this, so we got to make up this $1,000. We're going to do a fundraiser in March to make up that difference. It's going to get us through the year. Well, now you haven't had that fundraiser in March because of COVID-19. Now what do?
Now you're backtracking.
Yeah, so I know it's harping on a hard subject, but it's something that really touched Wiley's heart today when he read something, and we got to talking about it when I got over here. It touched me, and it's not something we talk about for fun. but it's something that's got to be talked about, and we got to start thinking about things this way. There's a button, you know, it's right up there, and it says we've always done it that way, and it's got a big red slash through it.
I remember somebody as Grand High Priest carried those things around, and I wore it at the leadership conference for many years. And
well, and what it boils down to is, brother, we've got to. This is a perfect time right now for us to re-kickstart our lodges and get out of those old habits that we've been in and start reassessing where we're at as a lodge and where we're at as a state in all the jurisdictions and all the different countries. Are we doing what's right for our lodge? Are we doing it the proper way? Or are we just getting by the skin of our teeth, and we need to look at something else? We need to look at redoing something so that we're more stable, or we need to look at maybe we need to combine. You know, I hate for a lodge to have to combine, but if it makes a more stable, stronger lodge, why wouldn't you? And I know that's change and that's hard. Well, this is my home lodge. I don't want to see it go away. Well, if you continue to drive it down the same road and it goes away, what have you done?
correct.
So you got to make the hard decisions.
Well, you know, what they said about insanity?
Doing the same thing and expecting different results.
That's right, doing the same thing over and over and over and over. Well, that's the way we've always done it. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, brethren, sometimes the way we've always done it ain't getting the job done. So that's enough about dues. We'll go on to a happier topic. You know, I saw that today, and I'm thinking seriously, because the statement that was made, I didn't even mention the statement. I don't think that it's right for me to say so, but I do think that it's the lodge's responsibility to figure out what they're going to do about the per capita stuff, even though we haven't met in 10 months. You've got to pre-plan, or 10 weeks. It seems like 10 years at this point. But we have got to get to the point where we're thinking about 2021's per capita in 2020.
Well, and let me just kind of broach on another subject that you said 10 months. It's only been 10 weeks, but it feels like 10 months. So I've had a couple of brethren approach me, and they've approached a couple of other brethren and asked this question. Well, since these worshipful masters have had a break this year, can we just vote them in to do another year next year? Well, first off, you can't say that. That would kind of be a little bit of
electioneering. You can't do that.
But number two is, if you put it in context, we're only talking 10 weeks, quarter of the year. So, yes, you've had some of your year taken away, but you still got 3/4 of it that you get to be with your brethren and lead your lodge. If it was 9 months, well, maybe some kind of something could be, you know. I doubt it, but I'm just saying.
Everybody needs a do-over. I think they need to do over 2020.
But the question was posed, hey, can we?
Right.
Number one, no, you can't do that because that's electioneering. Number two, you're not losing your whole year. You know, and the brother I feel sorriest for this year is our Grand Master.
Absolutely.
Think of how many meetings and conventions he has not been able to make because of this. Because they're out all the time.
Boy, he sure has saved a lot of money out of pocket, though.
A lot of miles. He saved a lot of tires. And I'm sure the other Grand Lodge officers that go with him or would attend when they're near are probably also, they're enjoying the time off, but they're also missing their brethren. But I feel sorriest for the Grand Master because this detracts from the year you look forward to going through that grand line.
And you spend a lot of years get there. But there again, as Masons, we need to adapt. We've got to overcome adversity. Every day when you get up, there's some adversity in your life that happens every day. Mm-hmm. And it's your attitude going into those things reflect how your adversity is conquered and handled. So,
well, and I want to go ahead and put this in forward because, you know, brethren, I've got to thank all the brethren that I've talked to and seen and the brethren that have joined us here. Brethren, for the most part, all of the brethren that I've talked with, met with, seen, been over and visited a few folks once in a while, of course, kept our social distance. You've all been very patient through this.
Yes.
So one of our quotes tonight, and I'm going to bring it up early, is by Joyce Mayer. Patience is not simply the ability to wait. It's how we behave while we're waiting.
Absolutely.
And I think the brethren have behaved overall very well.
Yeah, as a whole, and I think that most brethren understand and get where we're coming from. It's about safety. It's not about being selfish. At this particular point in time, you have to be selfish in your personal life to be able to protect yourselves. But as a whole, you got to be thoughtful of everyone else.
But bear in mind, we're on the back hill slide of this thing.
Yes, sir.
So, brethren, in your own mind, you need to start thinking through your openings, your closings. If you have degree work coming up, start thinking about those things, because we've been out of it for a while, and we know if you don't use it, you lose it.
That's right.
So start thinking about that. Sorry, I had to segue on that, but there were some good questions.
Well, we have squirrel moments quite often in this house.
Hey, and we're winging it today.
That's right. But the next thing we want to talk about in just a few minutes is, and this comes from the proceedings of the Grand Lodge of Georgia, 1919. And Will and I, we've been trying to slide through and get some research in some of these things and looking back over the proceedings. And I'm fortunate enough to have a copy of the proceedings that have been printed from 1910 to present. Those that have been printed, we're missing about 5 years in there somewhere.
During the Great Depression, we're losing some.
Yeah, but I'm sure that I'll round them up at some point. But the one of the topics in here, and if you ever get a chance to look at the proceedings of the Grand Lodge and read the Grand Master's addresses from years past, especially 100 years ago, we face similar problems, but there were different things going on in the world at that time. You know, World War II or World War I was just ending. The brethren were coming back to the States, and they had their grand session in Georgia. The grand session was in June at that time. And I'll just read a few excerpts from this particular volume that caught my eye today. It said, "It is not a time to hold back on precedents." So think about, I mean, we're talking 101 years ago. It is not a time to hold back on precedents. Same thing today. It's not a time. Masonry must meet the problems of the world head on. We can and we must advance, and we can do so in fulfillment and not in violation of our Masonic obligations. That's the very first phrase in the statement that they were making at the time. In the new order of things, Masonry must advance. So in 2020, here we are faced with adversity. We're faced with things that are going on in the world that we have never seen. The likes of us have never seen these things. We're learning on a whim. We're trying to find out what normal is, and normal is yet to be determined. So your normal is going to be what you make of it to be your normal, okay? But in the new order of things, meaning the new normal, Masonry must advance. Meaning we can't sit on our laurels. We can't give up our principles. We can't give up who we are as Masons just because the world changed. We got to be more proactive with who we are as Masons because the world changed. So that's what I'm saying to you. And this is 100 years ago, talking about the very same thing with a different twist on what was happening in the United States, especially Georgia. By progressing rightly in our individual capacities, we can enact the statutes of highest citizenship and influence others to be the best. Well, that is such a profound statement made by this brother in his report to the Grand Lodge. I mean, his last thing says, and influence others to be the best. What a profound statement. I've heard some brethren who mean the world to me. They talk about it, influencing others, impacting others. Be impact players in your communities. Be impact players in your lives. Be the impact player in your family. And things that changed, during this time were just, brethren had lost their lives. There were cemeteries popping up everywhere. These brethren are talking about Masonry advancing influencing others to be your best, to be their best.
Well, and that's what masonry does. That's part of our circle of influences,
Right.
is making good men better. And when we make good men better, we make the community around us better.
And this next phrase, it starts off the next paragraph. Not only let us, quote, show the world how Masons love one another, end quote, but let us reveal to all mankind how Masons love and contend for the right. Guys, I wished every person out there could read this very paragraph that I'm reading from and understand the impact that 101-year-old writing has had on my life today. Not just, I may read this 3 more times before I go to bed, just purely based on the fact that someone 101 years ago said exactly how I feel about Masonry.
Mm-hmm. And that just goes to prove to you that 100 years ago, it's the same as it is today. Masonry still has the same, as Most Worship Brother Wolford said, the goal. We have the same goal then as we do now. So Masonry hasn't changed. We've changed, and we need to get back to our center.
Yeah, well, our core and who we are at the very heart of Masonry. And I'll read just one more little phrase, and we'll wrap this thing
Sure.
up. Excuse me. Let us realize, this is in quotes again, let us realize indeed that we are the soldiers of light. That we are the little brothers of the eternal Father. Whoever your deity may be, we are the little brothers of that eternal Father. Okay? Marching forward in the new crusade in the campaign of what is right. Finding our refreshment in the faith of our Lord and the Lord of our fathers. In the confusion of things, may we not forget the author and conductor of all things, but in remembrance, order and rule of our fraternity by the light in which we see light.
Now, what was this in? Was this in the Grand Master's address, or was this just in...
This is a general report by Brother Raymond Daniel. And I want to do some more research on Raymond Daniel, because obviously he was a very influential Mason in Georgia at that time. And these reports are so to the point where sometimes in our Grand Master's address, these reports get long, dragged out and things like that. But these are short. They're 3 paragraphs, 2 paragraphs in several of these reports. But they're very profound. The future is before us. Upon us depends its solution, is how he ended the paragraph. So you think about that as a whole, Will.
Well, and back then, the brethren were very elegant writers. Much more so than a lot of us are today. And it's neat to read those words that put it into words what you and I are thinking about a lot of things, or put it in a context that makes us think about it in a different light, a different manner. And so if you get a chance to read some of this stuff, and Wiley, I think, has one of the most complete selections, I know the most complete selection I've seen of the Proceedings of the Grand Lodge of Georgia. It's fantastic to read through some of these. I'm reading through the ones from the Great Depression time.
See, he was the editor of the Messenger, and I would hope he was the Grand Master at some point too, and he may have been at some point. I apologize for not having more time to research this, but I really just read this at 5:30, 6 o'clock tonight, and
He was.
But
well, and Worship Brother Gary Cooper said something in here while you were reading. He said, I heard someone say, be the Mason you want them to be.
That's right. You got to be that guy. 1928. See, I got all these smart guys on here tonight.
Oh yeah.
But I hope that everyone got a little something out of the message tonight. And I think that I may I may take a photo of this excerpt from this and share it with everyone.
Yeah, we can put it on the Follow Me Facebook page.
This particular excerpt out of this particular volume, which you can see, it's the Proceedings of the Grand Lodge, and it's from 1919, and that just grabbed me at my heart because I hear a brother all the time, one that means the world to me, talk about investing in others. I hear him talk about influence people. Be the servant that you need to be. What better way to be a Mason than that? You are the son of light in two ways. You're the son of light for your creator. You're the son of light for Masonry. Your creator put you on this earth for a purpose. And apparently, if you're watching this and you're a Mason, he put you here to be a Mason. But as a Mason, you need to learn to serve others. And you need to serve others before yourself.
We had a Grandmaster that said that. About being once a servant.
Always a servant.
Oh, once a steward, always a steward.
Yeah, but he said that because it was something that was mentioned by a brother who was in the Grand Line that passed on, I worship Brother Aubrey Lewis, but he carried that forever, and it meant something.
He lived it.
And but anyway, guys, I just know that I wanted to share that with you. I am definitely going to see what kind of influence Raymond Daniel had on Masonry in Georgia, because if he wrote that eloquently, Most Worship Brother Walford said that he was a past editor of the Messenger.
Grandmaster.
He's Grandmaster in 28, so I know that I can definitely, throughout the books that I have, I will be able to find more about this influential Mason. But there's also a lot of good information in these proceedings that I found where there was so much inter-jurisdiction communication, worldwide communication.
Well, I was reading in the 1920, which is 100 years ago this year. I was reading the Grand Lodge proceedings while you were reading that one this evening about cipher code.
Yeah.
Did kind of a neat little thing there, and I won't get into it.
Yeah, but 100 years later, we're still complaining about the cipher code. Who get it?
And didn't you read something in there about district deputies?
In 1920, here's a little tidbit that, officially there were district deputies per se, but not officially district deputies. They were introduced at the Grand Session in 1920. According to this version in 1919, because they turned them down in 1919, so they re-entered it.
So we're going to find out more about that.
We're going to read more about that as we go along. But anyway,
brethren, again, thank you for spending your time with us tonight. We do value and we do appreciate your time. We enjoy the guests that join us, the ladies that join us. Please remember, if you would, to hit the like and subscribe buttons on this video. Also, click the little bell and you'll get notified of our next one. I know we wanted to really put out yesterday. We were doing this. We got it out kind of late because we couldn't figure out what we wanted to do tonight. Well, sometimes it's laid upon your heart what you need to talk about, and that is the case tonight.
And I think our shows generally work better for us when we basically wing it, because we're talking about topics of the day, something that may have come across our hearts and something we're just thinking about. And I want to say this one last thing. You do not have to be a Grand Master, a Grand Lodge officer, a Lodge officer, a Lodge leader to impact people.
Absolutely.
Your makeup and your character and how you go about dealing with people will be your impact on others. So always remember that. How you present yourself, and understand that it's not about you, it's about the fraternity as a whole. You're already steps above everyone else when you can believe that in yourself, no matter what. So with that said, we don't have very many quotes tonight. Will gave his only quote.
Well, just so that you guys know that we were absolutely winging it tonight, I'm going to flip us over just because I can. And I'm going to flip us upside down just to show you that we're winging it tonight. Brethren, ladies, guests, be excellent to each other.
And we love you.
Good night.